That's Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer calling for an end to demonstrations at the Ambassador Bridge. Her major concern is the auto sector, and automakers on this side of the border are also under stress. Ford Canada says they've had to slow production in their Oakville and Windsor plants. Toyota says they're also facing shortages impacting production and expect delays to continue through the weekend. Honda and Stellantis say they had to cut production on Tuesday before ramping back up yesterday. So how significant is the impact of all of this on the auto sector? Brian Kingston is the president of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. His organization is one of the applicants on that injunction that we told you about earlier. He is in Ottawa. Mr. Kingston, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
I'm wondering, sir, can you give us an idea of how much money is being lost here and how bad are these blockades impacting your sector?
The impact is massive, and frankly, it's hard to quantify. The Ambassador Bridge is the source and destination for 25% of trade between Canada and the U.S. On any given day, we can see upwards of $400 million worth of goods being imported and exported across that single bridge. And for the automotive industry, Canada's second largest export, we send over 90% of finished motor vehicles and parts to the United States. So every hour that this bridge is closed costs the industry, and most importantly, is costing Canadian jobs.
Yeah, I've lost track of days. It's either day 3 or it's day 4. I wonder how much worse things could get if this is prolonged.
Every hour that this persists has a knock-on effect for automotive production. The auto industry operates on a just-in-time model, so parts are delivered to a facility just before assembly occurs. When you have a situation like this that's allowed to persist for days on end, even if it were to end now, there is going to be time required to get production back up to full capacity. And just to add to that, the industry is just coming out of pandemic-related supply chain issues. We've had semiconductor shortages around the world that have impacted production. Last year, vehicle production in Canada was down 1 million units. So we're just starting to come out of that, and now we're faced with this blockage.
Are we looking at job losses here? Are we looking at layoffs here?
There have already been production shutdowns at facilities across Ontario. The longer this persists, the more likelihood of longer shutdowns, and that means job impacts for Canadians.
You know, that border usually works pretty well, right? And that's why there's been investments made on both sides of the border in a very integrated industry such as the auto sector. You mentioned today that all of this could erode investment in our auto sector. How real is that risk, especially when we're at this point in time we're trying to make the big push to electric vehicles?
Well, the auto industry is the poster child for integrated trade. The industry is totally aligned with the United States. Parts and components will cross the border 7-8 times before going into a final vehicle. So to have a robust and resilient functioning border is critical to that industry succeeding. Right now, we're going through a once-in-a-generation transformation to electrification. Automakers are investing hundreds of billions of dollars into building EVs. Canada has secured some of that investment. The members of the CVMA, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis have committed $6 billion to Ontario over the past 2 years. But if we want to be putting our best foot forward in these investment discussions, we've got to assure investors that Canada has resilient trade infrastructure that's efficient and reliable.
There has been conflict over electric vehicles in the future of it and whether it should happen here or happen in the United States. And we've already got a U.S. lawmaker, a Michigan representative named Alyssa Stolkin. She said on Twitter that all of this just reinforces the need for Buy American policies and maybe repatriating these manufacturing jobs to the United States. How worried are you that this sentiment could take root?
I don't think this will be the issue that forces that. I mean, the fact is we have seen $4 billion in investment dedicated to EV assembly in Canada, and the industry is totally interlinked with the United States, not just from an assembly perspective, but also from a parts perspective. Added to that is the fact that Canada is sitting on a huge amount of critical minerals that are going to be key components in this transition to electrification. So Canada has a very strong case to make, but we can't let issues like this cloud that pitch for new investment in Canada.
You know, we spoke to your injunction partner earlier today, Mayor Drew Dilkens of Windsor. Your organization is one of the applicants on this injunction. I mean, we have seen that getting an injunction is one thing, having laws is one thing. Getting all of these things enforced has been a real problem in Canada over the last couple of weeks. I mean, how confident are you that should a judge grant this injunction you're seeking, that the police will have the might, the muscle, and the will to actually enforce it and clear up the bridge?
We're confident that this will help advance that. We've been calling on all three levels of government to get together, come up with a plan, have a strategy, and enforce the law to clear this blockade. I think the injunction will provide additional clarity to that. And frankly, the economic costs are too high. This simply cannot persist any longer. So we're confident that this will be successful and we will see some action on this imminently.
But, you know, sir, this is a protest ostensibly against the legitimacy of governments, the legitimacy of mandates and laws that have been upheld by courts. I mean, the protesters have defied every other lawful order to this point. I mean, what if, what if this injunction isn't enough to get this moving? What options do you have?
Well, I think we need government to enforce the laws that they have. And no one is arguing against the right to protest. The protesters can protest elsewhere, but you can't protest on a bridge that connects Canada to the US, our largest trading partner, and is responsible for 25% of our trade. That's affecting jobs, not just jobs in the auto industry, but across the Canadian economy. We are a trading nation. We always have been. You cannot allow protests to interfere with that. This is the Canadian economy, the basis of the Canadian economy. So we need to see action, and the time is now.
I know you said every hour that goes by is catastrophic and highly expensive for your sector. Is there a tipping point in terms of days where it gets to the point where it's just sort of impossible to catch up on the backlog that this would create?
Automakers are best in class when it comes to having efficient logistics and finding ways to get product to their plants. So every option is used to ensure that production can remain up. But the reality is, the longer this goes on, the more challenging that becomes. If you look at the bridge in Sarnia, for example, we were seeing wait times there yesterday of well in excess of 4 hours. So as cargo is diverted to other bridges or crossings, you're going to see more volume, and no other crossing has the infrastructure that the Ambassador Bridge does to handle high volume truck shipments. So the longer it goes on, yes, the impact becomes more acute.
Okay, Brian Kingston, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.